On a Wednesday morning in January 2017, a foreclosure auction was held for a shopping mall in Fraser Township, Pennsylvania. It ran under 5 minutes. 12 parcels went up. There was exactly one bid. $100. The bid came from a lawyer acting for the loan's special servicer, acting for Wells Fargo, not as a lender, but as trustee for the certificate holders of a Morgan Stanley securitization. Wells Fargo never lent a dollar here. The mortgage was written by Morgan Stanley Mortgage Capital in December 2006. $133 million, interest only. By the time the trust foreclosed, the borrower owed $142,899,000. Understand what that $100 is, because it is not a price. A trustee at a foreclosure auction is allowed to bid the debt it is already owed instead of cash. It is called a credit bid. Nobody else showed up to bid against it. So the $100 is not what someone paid for a mall. It is what a mall is worth when there is no second bidder. The Galleria at Pittsburgh Mills opened in July 2005 on about 194 acres, a little over 1 million square feet. To support the mortgage, an appraiser valued it at $190 million. In August 2016, an appraiser valued it at $11 million. The building did not move. The land did not move. What changed was the arithmetic underneath it. Walk in through the parking deck doors. The light goes flat and even. The floor gets softer. The temperature stops being weather. You will also have trouble finding a clock. In 2014, the Australian consumer group Choice sent testers through 4 shopping centers in Greater Sydney and counted them. Across all 4, they found 1. The testers timed the walk, too. At Westfield Bondi Junction, car to the electronics store took 2 minutes and 16 seconds. The return trip took 3 minutes and 52 seconds. The way out was 70% longer than the way in. 1 route, 1 store, 1 day. No operator has ever said any of it is deliberate. Then there is the music. In 1982, Ronald Milliman ran 9 weeks of tempo tests in a single supermarket. Slow music, 72 beats per minute or under. Fast music, 94 and over. Gross sales came in 38.2% higher on the slow days. That study is 44 years old, and it has not aged well. The largest field test since, an entire 140-store Dutch retail estate, 6 weeks, found no effect on turnover at all. So the folklore is thinner than it sounds. The architecture is real. It is just not the reason a mall makes or loses money. The mall is not a psychology experiment. It is a lease portfolio. Roughly 900 enclosed malls are left in the United States, and the top 100 hold about half of the sector's entire asset value. The bottom 350 hold about 10%. Simon Property Group owns or holds an interest in 108 of them, roughly 1 in 8 of what remains. CBL, which filed Chapter 11 in 2020 and came out a year later, is down to 88 properties. Macerich has been a net seller for 2 years, and a class of buyer has appeared to catch what falls. Namdar, Kohan, names that show up on deeds after everyone else has stopped bidding. E-commerce is the usual explanation, and it is smaller than you think. In the first quarter of 2026, the Census Bureau put online sales at 16.9% of total American retail, seasonally adjusted. That denominator includes car dealers and gas stations. Either way, most of American retail still happens inside a building. Open Simon's 2025 annual report to the lease expiration table and find the leases that run out in 2028. 18 anchor leases, 2.3 million square feet. Average base rent, $5.17 a square foot. 2,585 inline leases, 10.5 million square feet, $65.82. The shop next door pays nearly 13 times what the anchor pays. Same building, same roof, same year. The reason is ownership. Anchors frequently own their own boxes outright or own the building on ground leased from the mall. At the end of 2020, CBL's properties held nearly 35 million square feet of anchor space. 21.3 million of it, 61%, sat inside buildings CBL did not own. You are not their landlord. You are their neighbor. Sears wrote the extreme version. In 2015, it sold 235 properties to a REIT called Seritage and leased most of them back. The master lease covered 224 stores for $134 million a year, escalating 2% annually. Consumer prices over the same stretch rose about 3% a year. A lease built to run a decade lost value every year it survived, and the deepest anchor lease on record barely reads as a lease at all. In 1991, Sears signed at the Mall of America in Bloomington, Minnesota. The term, with extensions, runs 100 years to 2091. Base rent, $10 a year, prepaid in a lump sum through 2021. Now the part that turns a bad tenant into a dead building. Most inline leases at an enclosed mall contain a co-tenancy provision. It says the small tenant's obligation depends on the big tenant's staying open. If a named anchor goes dark, or if occupancy falls below an agreed threshold, the inline tenant is entitled to cut its rent, often to a percentage of sales, and after a grace period, to walk away entirely. Read that again, because it inverts everything. The anchor paying $5 a foot is not just $5 a foot. It is the condition on which the $65 rents are payable. One department store closing does not cost you the department store's rent. It unlocks rent relief across a third of the building, all at once, by contract, with no negotiation available to you. Simon lists this in its own risk factors. Every mall REIT does. That is why anchor closures cost so much more than anchor rent. Simon's total revenue for 2025 was $6.3 billion. Fixed lease income accounted for $4.7 billion. Variable lease income, percentage rent plus recoveries for taxes, utilities, and marketing, accounted for $1.1 billion. That leaves about $525 million, and it has a name. $144 million in fees for managing other people's shopping centers, and $381 million in other income, marketing, media, sponsorship, parking, land sales. Parking sits inside that last line and is never broken out separately. Nobody discloses it. Non-disclosure is not zero. About 91 cents of every revenue dollar is lease income. It is a balance sheet with a roof on it. Simon's portfolio net operating income was $6.1 billion for 2025. That number looks impossible next to $6.3 billion of revenue, and there is a reason. Portfolio net operating income counts Simon's share of joint ventures that consolidated revenue does not. They are not the same denominator. Do not divide them. And net operating income is not profit. It is measured before interest, before corporate overhead, and before the capital you must spend to stop a mall becoming Pittsburgh Mills. Simon carries $28 billion of debt at an average rate just under 4%. Service that first. Now the other side of the ledger, which is where malls actually die. 1 million square feet of enclosed mall has to be heated, cooled, lit, cleaned, insured, patrolled, and repaved, whether it contains 150 tenants or 40. The escalators run, the sprinkler system stays pressurized, the parking lot gets resurfaced on the same schedule. Fire code does not scale with occupancy. None of this changes based on how busy you are. And there is a mechanic buried in the lease that makes it actively worse. On the older pro-rata leases still running at weaker malls, common area maintenance is pooled. Heating, security, janitorial, snow removal, insurance, and split across the tenants who are open. Lose a tenant, and the cost does not fall. The pool simply gets divided fewer ways. Every survivor's share goes up. Raise the survivor's share, and the weakest of them leave, which divides the pool fewer ways again. Simon has largely moved to fixed common area maintenance, where the landlord eats the shortfall instead. That is better for the tenant, and it does not make the bill disappear. Somebody pays it either way. Then the tax bill, which is assessed on what the building used to be worth. Assessors lag the market by years, and appealing takes years more. Century 3 fought its way from $112 million of assessed value down to $58, and by the time it won, the building was already dying. So the costs are fixed, the tax bill looks backwards, and the rent relief triggers automatically. That is the machine. Now watch what it does to a loan. Underwriters price a mall on one number: how much income covers the debt payment. The Pittsburgh Mills loan was written at 1.25 times coverage, $11.3 million of underwritten net operating income against the debt service. That is a 20% cushion. Income could fall a fifth before the building stopped paying for itself. It fell further. When it does, the losses run in a fixed order, and it is the opposite of what most people assume. Equity goes first, to zero. Then mezzanine debt. At Pittsburgh Mills, $32.5 million, secured by ownership interests rather than by the building. Only after both are gone does the senior lender take the hit. Moody's studied 52 regional mall loans liquidated out of securitizations since 2017. Average loss severity, 77%. Every other property type in the same window averaged about 49. Occupancy does not save you. Pembroke Lakes Mall in Florida was about 95% occupied when its $260 million loan hit maturity in March 2025 and defaulted. It reappraised that September at $127 million. The building was full. The loan was underwater by $130 million. Green Street grades malls on four things: tenant mix, productivity, location, condition. The scale starts at A++ and runs down through the letters to D. The sales thresholds behind each grade have never been published. What the grade does is set the yield. In 2018, the last time the full ladder was published, Green Street's nominal cap rates ran 4% for the top 100 malls, 5.4% for malls ranked 101 through 300, 8.4% for 301 through 500, and 14.5% for everything below 500. 14.5% against 4%. More than 3.5 times the yield demanded on the same building type. Same steel, same slab, same parking field. A buyer at 4% is pricing durable income. A buyer at 14.5% is pricing the exit. That is not one market with a range in it. That is two markets that happen to share a word. In August 2025, Macerich closed on Lakewood Center in California. Headline price, $332.1 million. Macerich received almost none of it. The buyer assumed the existing mortgage, $317 million of face principal. The cash component was $15 million. And after closing costs and buyer credits, Macerich's own filing states what actually survived: net proceeds of $4.9 million. A mall that appraised at $630 million in 2015 produced under $5 million of cash. Century 3 Mall outside Pittsburgh ran the longer version. Built in 1979, nearly 1.3 million square feet, 79.5% leased at the end of 2007. By the end of 2010, that was 76%, and Simon walked, voluntarily defaulting on roughly $79 million of mortgage debt. County assessors cut its assessed value from $112 million to $58 million, a 48% cut. School district officials said it took $1.9 million a year out of what the mall paid them. In 2013, a Las Vegas investor bought it. They paid $10.5 million for the mall. In February 2019, the borough posted the building unsafe after the water line feeding the sprinklers failed. Council condemned it in July 2023. Demolition ran from March 2024 to April 2026. The trust that took Pittsburgh Mills for $100 sold it 15 months later in April 2018 for $11.35 million. The buyer was Namdar Realty Group. What follows is the public record. Assessment appeals cut the taxable value far enough that the Deer Lake School District ended up owing the owner a $2.3 million refund, repaid as credits against future tax bills. Money running from the school district back to the mall. In 2023, a county sheriff's sale was scheduled over roughly $11.5 million of unpaid special assessments. It was canceled when the owner paid. In 2024, the township sued over $4.5 million of road repairs it says were ignored. A township inspector wrote 436 citations. In April 2025, the district attorney charged the operating company with creating a public nuisance, a misdemeanor, over potholes that slowed emergency vehicles. Police had logged around 30 flat tires. The fines are under appeal. Macy's, the last anchor, closed in the spring of 2026. The mall is quietly for sale. Randall Park Mall opened outside Cleveland in August 1976. In October 2004, it sold for $6 million. Demolition started in December 2014. Amazon did not build what replaced it. Seafried Industrial Properties developed and owns the fulfillment center, estimated at the time of the lease at $177 million, and leases it to Amazon. 855,000 square feet of footprint. It opened in September 2018 with over 2,000 full-time jobs, supported by a $7.8 million state job creation credit, an $8.5 million grant package, and a 75% property tax abatement for 15 years. More was spent putting a warehouse on that dirt than the mall sold for, 29 times over. Crystal Mall in Waterford, Connecticut, appraised at $153 million in 2012 and sold at foreclosure in June 2023 for about $9.5 million. In October 2025, General Dynamics Electric Boat bought it for $25 million. 3,000 to 5,000 engineers and designers are going where the food court was, submarine designers in a mall. That is the American sentence. It does not travel. In India, Cushman & Wakefield tracks about 62 million square feet of Grade A mall space across the top 8 cities. Retail space per capita there is half a square foot, and that half is computed on the population of those 8 cities, roughly 124 million people, not on India's 1.4 billion. To reach 1 square foot per head, the country would have to roughly double what it has. For scale on the other side, American regional and super-regional malls hold roughly 1.1 billion square feet. Against a population of 342 million, that is about 3.2 square feet per person. 6 to 7 times India's space per head, not 40. And India's numbers are more polarized than the headline. Grade A vacancy fell to 5% in the second quarter of 2026. But all-grade shopping center vacancy across 32 cities sits at 15.4%, and Knight Frank classes 74 centers, 1 in 5 it surveyed, as ghost centers, at least 40% empty and more than 3 years old. 15.5 million square feet dormant. In Dubai, the figure everyone quotes is wrong. Wholesale and retail trade combined, dominated by wholesale distribution and re-export, not shops, came to 24.5% of Dubai's real GDP over the first 9 months of 2025. Retail alone is a fraction of that. Dubai Mall drew 111 million visits in 2024 against 32 million a year at Mall of America. Even there, malls are the small business. Emar's malls and retail leasing segment earned 6.3 billion dirhams in 2025, under 13% of group revenue. The company is a developer that owns malls, not a mall company. Look at what the market will put against a square foot of enclosed mall. In April 2026, Simon and Invesco refinanced the shops at Crystals in Las Vegas with a $750 million loan at 5.2%, fixed, interest only. The collateral is 291,000 square feet. A lender lent $2,577 against every square foot of it. Chesterfield Town Center in Richmond, just over 1 million square feet, sold in December 2025 for $80 million. A buyer paid about $80 a square foot. Southland Mall in Hayward, California, 1.1 million square feet, sold in November 2025 for $70 million, all cash. About $64 a square foot. And in Fraser Township, 12 parcels, 1 bid, and no second bidder at any price.